Hi everybody and welcome back. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about all things web application pen testing. So I had an interesting conversation with a couple of upcoming students who are getting into the world of penetration testing and cybersecurity. And they approached me and they said, Andrew, what's the best way to get hands-on involved with, web application pen testing? And, what are some of the resources that are available to me? And then how can I start practicing my skills? And I thought this is going to be a great video to start talking a little bit about, the OWASP top 10, web application pen testing, my sort of process around that. And the first part of this video around sort of enumeration, getting up to speed with Burp suite, and enumerating the application itself. So I thought, what a great way to introduce this into web application pen testing, and starting that off with the OWASP G-Shop. And the OWASP G-Shop is basically a web application that's vulnerable, that's been built that way to basically allow us to test our skill sets against the OWASP top 10. So if I just go into the Google and just go OWASP 10, these are the top 10 most critical web application risks or vulnerabilities essentially when we're coming up against a web application. Some sort of forms of SQL injection. It's always usually at the 1 or 2 or top 3, every single year. There's always issues with databases, injecting those databases, querying that database for the application, where it's storing that database information of users or credentials always, in most cases. And obviously many web applications use your operating system features and external programs to perform their functions, right? So we want to then compromise those accounts. When we start talking about SQL injection specifically, and we're going to go into this I think we get up to the part 3 or part 4 where it gets really heavily involved with injection. And also just talk about injection, but to talk about all these other, key concerns that we have, it's always around exploitation, right? And that's the thing that we want to get to is, what's the most damage that we can cause with this sort of injection attack or broken authentication? We want to do a form of, authenticator or unauthenticated attacks, APIs. Can we grab the session tokens or keys or, the cookies, manipulate those cookies? There's so many things to do when we're doing a web application. And I wanted to put this forward and create this video segment to sort of put you on the right foot forward of, when you come up against a web application, what's a good way to start and a great process to then get you in the right headspace of, have I tested XYZ? Have I tested this? Because, if you point an automated scanner against an application, chances are it's going to miss a lot of things. So, when you're coming up against an attack, or to do specifically, a web application pen test, you'll see as we go through this OWASP top 10 and the OWASP G-Shop that a lot of these attacks have to be done manually, right? They're manually done by us. The Burp suite or Nikto or all these other vulnerability scanners or tools can only do so much, and sometimes they miss a lot of key things that we often overlooked, or they just miss a lot of these things. So we have to have a right formality or a right methodology to then make sure that everything gets tested in the right manner. So let's get started with the OWASP G-Shop. And this is obviously, again, a vulnerable application that's been built for us to test our skill sets on and against the OWASP top 10. So throughout the course of the next 6 tasks, so we'll start at level 1, which is trivial, really easy stuff around enumeration, to really hard injection, cross-site scripting attacks. So it's going to go through all these sort of the OWASP top 10 essentially, and it's going to test our skill sets around that. So it's going to say, hey, if you can do cross-site scripting, perform cross-site scripting against a web form, or get access to another user's basket items, for example. So it's going to test our skill sets, and it's a really great way to to research and to practice your skills. And it's a little bit capture the flag like. It's probably not like that in the real world, but then again, it's getting you up to speed of where you need to be. Okay, so the very first thing that we want to do is set this thing up. And the easiest way to do that is just to go over to, now I've already set this up. So we're just going to go through the simple process of how to do it. You guys can go ahead and create your own account, set it all up. I've already done that. So just to save time, we're going to use that account that I've set up. But you guys go ahead and create this all yourself. It'll take 20 minutes to set up. And then you can go ahead and do it at your own pace, or rewatch the video again as we go through the next steps. So just go over to Google, type in Heroku Juice Shop, and there's a link here by elements.heroku.com. Fire that up, and this is obviously essentially how you set it up. So you can go read all that. You can do it through Heroku. You can set it up through Docker or a container, the Amazon instances, how you ever want to set this thing up. Now, there's some issues with some things later down the track, which I'm not going to get into right now, but one of the easiest ways to get this thing up and running is just to go into the Heroku app, create an account, log in, and deploy it. So if you just click this link, it will take you through that process. You basically create your account. So you go here, you give it a name, you obviously give it a region of where you're from, and you deploy it. And it just takes about 20 minutes or so to go ahead and actually do that. So what you're left then with is a wonderful instance of, let me get my links up here, of Juice Shop. So I've just named mine that. So constart tag Juice Shop, and that gives us our Juice Shop that we can test. So when I first encountered Juice Shop, I spent almost a month, just playing around with it, and several weeks in, or several, couple of hours in, I realized that there's a scoreboard and there's a proper step and process to go ahead and actually play with the Juice Shop. So I want to give you the right methodology to this, put you in the right step forward. And this is our very first part video. So in this video, we're only going to talk specifically around enumeration. We're going to talk about cross-site scripting, UI bypass, broken authentication, that side of things. And you'll see some sort of things around input validation that we're going to cover, redirects, and it's just getting us comfortable with, working with an application. So that's what I wanted to do. So the very first thing that I want you guys to do is obviously set it up. So go over to Heroku, set up an account, deploy the account, and get to this page, right? Get to your own page when you're getting to this page. That's the first thing. Now, the next step there is there's a scoreboard that we have to find. So without further ado, let's get into the enumeration process to then start enumerating this application for known vulnerabilities or bugs or concerns. And then we want to then pass those tests, right? So there's several challenges that we have to pass, and you'll see what they are once we find the scoreboard. So I'm just going to relaunch a new session of, actually, no, I'm not. So I've got Burp Suite that's running up here. So I'm just going to get out of this in 1 second. All right, cool. And if I can just remove from scope and delete, let me just delete host. Cool. So what I'm going to do now is load this site up with Burp Suite. So if you want to get to Burp Suite, it's different on every machine. Just go over to the console and just go Burp. It's not coming up, but that's okay. Mine's run differently because I've set it up differently. So I'm just going to go to Burp, and then Burp Suite just loads up for me. So I've already got it running, so that's okay. I'm just going to close that off. Hopefully that won't kill that session, but that's cool. So load up Burp Suite. And the other thing that you want to do is set up this little Foxy proxy. So what Foxy proxy does is a very quick proxy switcher. So if you're running web proxies, you can just put in a bunch of proxies in here and just very quickly toggle between them all instead of going into the settings, preferences, then network settings, click, manual proxy, and putting in proxy settings for tinkering with the application proxy. Just a very quick way to switch proxies instead of doing 10 clicks to get to that step. So it's more of a CBF-like mentality to go in and click all those settings when you don't need to do that. So set that up. Just go to Foxy proxy add-on, Foxy proxy, and then just install it for your preferred browser extension. So I'm using Firefox in this instance. You can set up for Chrome or whatever the case is. Make sure it's pointing to your loopback address, so your local host at 127.0.0.1 and the port that it's then associated to. So making sure that that's all connected correctly to in Burp Suite. I've encountered many issues where these parameters are wrong and you're spending a couple of hours on a certain project when it's not intercepting the right things, and it's just a little bit messy when you're spending a couple of hours troubleshooting a really silly issue. So make sure that all coincides correctly. You've got that loopback or local host pointing to the right port. So that's 8080. This should be on 8080 as well. It's on, it's listening. So let's get started. All right, cool. I'm just going to close a few things off here, guys, so we don't get confused. Okay, cool. So let's begin. So let's fire this side up. So it's intercepting. I've gone into Burp Suite. I'm not intercepting any actual pages or requests at this stage. So I've turned it off. Usually it comes on by default like that. We don't want to intercept anything. So we want to do link discovery right now. This is what it's called when we're doing content discovery essentially. So when the site loads up into Burp Suite, we would then want to spider it manually. So we want to get to the application, we want to click around, we want to view some things, and let all those links then go back into Burp Suite, which we then can store. So I'm just going to drop that packet, just drop. Oh, good. All right, cool. So let's go back into the intercept. Let's turn that off. I'll go back into the web page and I'll just refresh that. So you can see that this should now come up into our Burp Suite. Hopefully. This is what I mean. I think it's going to cause a bit of an issue. Intercept is off, options on. Let me just turn that off. And sometimes it gets a little bit tweaky like this. It just gets really annoying sometimes where it just doesn't load up correctly. And you just have to play with it. So let's see if that did anything. If it didn't, it looks like it hasn't done anything. That's okay. All right, let's just quit it. Next. All right, there we go. So it looks like it's already coming through. All right, so let's give it another refresh, and we can see that it's got 2 instances of it. That's fine, so I must have that. I'm going to close that version. That was just me playing with a few things before. Don't want to get confused with the new version. So let's go over to that. So your one's going to be a bit different to mine. Obviously, your naming convention will be different. Make sure that you set your naming convention in Burp Suite when you're refreshing it as well. So I'm going to add this to scope. So right click, add to scope. Yes. And now we just want to focus in on our application in this case, right? I don't care about all these other applications that are here. I just want to zero in on this specific application. So this goes into hand-to-hand when you're doing other application testing, whether you're doing bug bounties or attacks against companies like Tesla or Yahoo. We just want to know what's specific to that scoping item. So we've added it to scope. So that's cool. So let's go into the filter section, show only in scope items, and that's it. That's cool. So it looks like it's picked up some links, some content. That's cool. A couple of issues here, nothing too fancy. So what we're going to do now is a couple of things. And excuse me, the first thing that I usually do when I'm add an application like this, make sure that it's in Burp Suite. And now our first process is enumeration, right? I want to click around. So I want to open up the customer form. So we know that there's a customer. So as you're doing all this, just take a note of things, right? So you're coming up to the application, there's a customer form, fill it out, add some stars. Let's do the capture. So 8 + 9 is 9 and 9 is 18, 17. Plus 4, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Add that in. Okay, that's done. Let's go back, about us page. Okay, cool, there's an about us. Let's go back. There's a photo wall. And all these links will start populating inside. See, as you can see, they start going inside actual Burp Suite. That's what we want. We want to spider the page manually, and then we want to do an automated scan as well, just in case we've missed anything. So the photo wall. So it looks like there's a photo there that's part of a task as well later that you'll see. So there should be a photo here that comes up, which we'll check it out later. So getting started guide. All right, there's a search bar. Let's go search for test. Okay. Click around. So an account, there's a login page. Okay. So let's see if we can log in with a test account. Okay, invalid email password. There's a customer page, so maybe we can create an account. So an account. Great, so it looks like it's successfully created an account. I'm not going to log into that account just yet because what I want to do is I want to stay on the unauthenticated side of things just for now. So when I want to authenticate, I want to do some testing first, and that's it. So let's get back into Burp, and it looks like it's put in a couple of things, nothing too fancy. So what I'm going to do right now is just spider the host. So I'm going to do a manual spider, and then we'll do also an active scan as well. Just keep everything to default for now. We're not going to go into anything too fancy, which I think later on we'll probably start talking about these things and start talking about the regex accounts and setting up specific parameters. But right now we'll just keep it simple. Hit next, okay, and let it go ahead and just do an active scan. All right, and let that start filtering. So as you can see, a couple of things are starting to pop up. We've got an FTP directory, we've got a robots.txt directory as well. So if you're not familiar with robots.txt, it's basically an indexing file that says, hey, don't look at this /robots.txt file. And if you look at the response, it's saying, don't allow FTP to be crawled. So this usually is a good indication of something that's trying to get hidden, or someone's trying to hide something that's saying, look, don't allow indexing on /FTP. So let's just take a look at FTP and see what we can find. That's just the first thing. So, and we've already solved some of those tasks as well. Some of those tasks just involved us going to that web page or like viewing that web page. So, just really easy stuff. So I'm just going to go back to here. I'm going to duplicate this page, so I want to keep that open. And then I'll just go into /FTP. And it looks like there's some stuff in here already with this FTP account. So, database account, acquisitions, legal. So let's open that, view it. It's confidential, do not distribute our company plans. Okay, cool. So we've just solved our first task. And that's how easy that was, right? It was to find and enumerate this application for things that shouldn't be that easy to break. In that case, it was FTP, right? Those documents, it was obviously a sensitive data exposure or some sort of concern around FTP credentials. For this case specifically, we found acquisitions. So if the company had an acquisition information about a company they were acquiring, that's an issue, right? And if you're doing an application test and you found a financial records account of last financial year, for example, that's a real big concern. So we've just completed our first task. So if I go back into the application and refresh it, it should tell us that our first task was completed, which it doesn't. So that's okay. So let me just go back into that, open that up, and that's okay. So acquisitions. Cool. So I think that's done. When we find the scoreboard, it'll probably show us that anyway. So let's do that right now. So I'm going to go into Burp and let's just see if it's found anything else. So we've got the FTP account. There's API, a couple of assets, FTP. Okay, REST, robots. All right. So another thing that we should be doing on the application is viewing the source information. So viewing the page source. Usually here it will have application versions, what applications, CMS content. management systems they're using, looking at versions, looking at comments from the developers. Usually a good start would just go onto this page, see if there's any scripts that are loading up, things like that. Doesn't look like there's anything on here that's too, jump out concern. What I'm going to do is go back into the application and just view the element. So I'm going to inspect the element. And right now I'm just going to start looking at certain things, right? We have the inspector, which we'll be playing at tonight. The console, we can add specific parameters inside. The debugger, which we're looking at the actual source of this web page. So if I make that pretty, so what I've done is just go into the debugger, and the debugger is the entire source of basically the source code of the entire JavaScript of this page. So there's a little icon down here that says pretty print source. This makes it nice and pretty instead of this just one line thing. Just hit that, and this is the entire code essentially to this web page, right? So there's so much code here. And the first step that we want to do right now is find this scoreboard. So when you're looking for things, you might want to come into the debugger, look at the actual JavaScript of the application, start maybe searching some things, for example, admin or administrator, or, you you'll start seeing things like / rest admin or other directories. And, we can do directory brute forcing and using dirbuster and gobuster and derb and dir search, all these cool tools, but we're not going to do that right now. I think that's a bit later when we do more of the bug bounty stuff. But in this specific application, using shop specifically, we're not going to do directory brute forcing. A directory brute force will find all these things. That's what's really cool about it. But we'll do that when we do more web application bug bounty like things. So let's just go back into this and just do a quick search for what are we searching for? Scoreboard. So we can see some scoreboard icon, sort of comments stuff here. What we want is a link. So app, take scoreboard, let's just go through it, path, there we go. So this is what we want. So this obviously is a path of some sort that gets us to this specific link or specific thing that we want to get to. So I'm just going to close this and I'm going to duplicate this tab. And let's just go into there. Did I do that wrong? Load up. There we go. Okay, cool. So we found the scoreboard. Woohoo. And yeah, there we go. So there's our task that was completed before, sensitive data exposure. We found a confidential document, right? And also the FTP records that we found before. We also viewed that robots.txt, which said disallow FTP. We accessed the acquisitions, so that's sensitive data exposure there. So acquisitions of the company acquiring, or the acquiring strategy of the company. So level 1 task, really easy. We found that, we passed that, woohoo. Error handling, navigating to a page. And this part right here, right? Find the hidden scoreboard. So this is what we found. So now that we've got the scoreboard, it's giving us some tasks to go ahead and complete, right? Nice and easy. So let's get to it. So we'll probably not start as a top-down approach. I think I'll probably go through this in a more of a strategic-like sense. Let's look at things. I think there's a part here that talks about authentication. So the 0-star feedback, we've got, here we go, this part. So the repetitive registration. So follow a dry principle while registering a user. And dry, I forgot what dry stands for. When they talk about the strategy, the dry principle basically says things like, principle, don't repeat yourself. So things where you can repeat yourself, things like duplicate emails, duplicate passwords, duplicate usernames, duplicate, things like that, things that are double, if that makes sense, right? And obviously the opposite to that is wet, waste everybody's time, things like that where, it makes things a little bit more complicated, but silly where we can exploit. So follow the dry principle, which don't repeat yourself principle, while registering a user. So let's take a look at that. So let's go over to the new user form. And let's see where we can repeat ourselves on that page. So we're not yet a customer. Let's go into the new page. So can we repeat ourselves at the email? So there's no duplicate email fields. There is a duplicate password field. So we can potentially repeat ourselves here. So let's just do this like we did before. So I'm going to do a test1 at test.com. Password 12345. Password 12345. Okay, so that's worked. Let's see if we can get a little bit more funky now. So there's two ways to do this. We can do it through the application itself, or we can do it through Burp Suite. We'll do it through here first, and then I'll show you the Burp Suite version. We've completed another task, and we didn't do anything with the capture, so that's a little bit strange. That's okay. Let's not worry about that for now. Looks like something's going on in the background where it's probably still spidering, and I think it's still running. So I think something's going on here with the capture, but that's okay. So let's follow the dry principle recipe when you're registering a new user. So the issue is now is a form of input validation, right? Can we register a user with the application following this dry, don't repeat yourself method, right? So the code within the application itself shouldn't be repeated. So in this case, the password fields here shouldn't be repeated. So that's the example of where we can repeat ourselves. So the password is that page. This entry right here is where we can actually change its parameters, and we can then violate those dry principles. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So I've put in the password of 12345. Let's get rid of that. So let's take a look at this. So 12345, 12333. And it's saying to us that, hey, the passwords do not match. That's fine, right? So if we make a match, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it goes all green. So it's all hunky-dory. So let's change the password from a 5 and let's add it now to maybe a 6. And you see now that the actual page hasn't given us an error message, right? So there's no error message telling us that, hey, it's invalid. That's an issue, right? So if you've come up to a registration form page and you're not following the right principle of making sure that the code isn't duplicating itself, and I can do this, that's a key concern, right? So we just violated a certain input validation control. So if we can register this user, that's a concern. So it looks like we can register that user, which is not a good sign. Right, and we can also do the same thing through Burp Suite as well. So if we go not yet a customer, let's go test3 at test.com, password 12345, 12345, whoa, 12345, security question, and I'm going to go back into Burp Suite and go into the proxy, make sure the proxy is on, because what I want to do now is I want to intercept this request, so then we can start manipulating that over on Burp Suite. So if I just hit register, it's going to send that over to Burp because Burp is acting like a proxy. And here's our intercepted page, right? So I'm going to send that over to Repeater, and we'll take a look at that as well now. So let's have a look at that. So the email has come out as test3 at test.com. Password of 12345, repeat password. So there's your dry principle, repeat password 12345. And if I just add a parameter of, let's go 9, and let's send that through, the status has come back as success. So that's gone through as well. So we should then be able to even log in with that user. So let's go back onto this page. Let me make sure that the proxy is off. Right, and then I think I forgot that credential. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's go test3 at test.com. Let's see if that's actually working. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9. Was it test3? Oh, test3 at test. So that looks like it's worked, right? So that's an issue with input validation, right? So big concern, big no-no. It looks like we've authenticated and we're in. So I'm going to log out. I still want to stay on the unauthenticated side of things. So we've created an account. We've passed that, part of the scoreboard. So if I go back to the scoreboard now, we've, passed that. We followed the drive principle while registering a user. So we've passed that request. Let's go into the other part. Let's go read the privacy policy. Now, there's probably two ways to do this. One is, once you're authenticated, you can go to the privacy section, review that policy. I found this when you're just doing a crawl of a page, or let's do what we did before. Let's go back into the application. Let's go inspect the element. Let's go over to our debugger, go into the main JavaScript over here, and let's just look for, what is it, privacy. Privacy, let's see if there's any connections, links, app, tag, policy, privacy. Here we go, privacy policy. Let's try this. I think that should get us to a home run. Let me just add that in here. So usually there's a couple of tinkering. I don't know if you can play with it and see where you can put into the parameter, if it's just before this hash or after the hash. It's very just temperamental like that. So it looks like that didn't work. Let's get rid of that. Maybe it's right here. That looks like it didn't work. Are we looking at the right page? Let's see if there's any other pages. Privacy. Privacy. Okay, so that's definitely right. So it's privacy tag policy. So let's go privacy policy. Doesn't seem to like it. I don't know what's being annoying right now, but so look at all these paths that are here, right? So we found the scoreboard, two-factor authentication, and things like that, right? So this is just us playing around with that last login. Let's try this. There we go. Cool. So we found the policy page. So task done. So it's usually just tinkering around with the web app, clicking here, trying different things. Don't be scared to test it around. So we found that, that's done. Let's close that. Next challenge. Let's see what we've got next. That's coming up. So let's go to our dashboard, scoreboard, and let's see what else we have to do. Okay, so let's give a 0-star feedback to the store. So another input validation like category. Let's go ahead and do that. So let's go over to the, okay, I think we have to log in now. So let's log in. I don't know which account this is or which one I'm trying with. It's probably going to fail, but let's see if that worked. Okay, cool. So that worked. So that was one of the many accounts that we just tested with before. Log in with the account that you guys created. It could be the account that you're playing with before, making sure that, the input validation from before, you're using the right password, or just create a new account very quickly if you got confused. So let's give a 0-star feedback on the feedback form. So let's go to customer feedback. So it's coming back from this customer. Actually, probably do that all unauthenticated as well. I think it had, wasn't it? Can we just log out? Okay, cool. We can do that anonymously. Great. So, hi, I really hate your web page. It's really buggy. Issues. Yeah. All right, so as you can see, it won't let us alter the parameters right here, right? So it's telling us that we have to do a rating of 1, 2, 3, 4, or a 5-star rating. The task though to complete this is give a 0-star feedback. So we're at the page, and we have to put in the capture as well. So let's do a couple of things, right? Let's inspect the element and let's see what we can find. So let me bring this up a little bit. And then let's just go to, so as you can see, we inspect the element, it's going to those certain parameters of the web page, right? So if as I'm scrolling through, it's going to the right forms of the page. So a very quick way that you can do this is you can see that the submit page, the submit icon right here is grayed out. So if I right click that, inspect element, it's going to take me right to that parameter. And that's where we want to go. So what we want to do now is obviously locate that button, so which we did. And now we want to try and see if we can alter this submit icon, alter this parameter. So let's have a look at this. So it's saying the submit button raised. Let's go to disabled equals true. So if we can just maybe change the disabled. If we can enable that parameter. Oh, it has changed. Cool. So it looks like it has now enabled us to submit that parameter. So no, let's refresh that. Let's give that 0-star feedback again. So it looks like because I clicked it, it's already put in that session. So let's pop the thing. Hey, like site. 0-star feedback. Let's go back into the submit icon, inspect the element, go to the, let's expand it. Where are we? Why isn't it taking us? Here we go. Disabled. Let's re-enable that specific parameter. That's now enabled it. That's cool. So now we should do 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 7. I have no clue. I'm really bad at maths. So let's go 16 times 7, 112. All right. Great. So submitted, right? So this obviously phase 1, part 1 right here that we're doing all these tasks, enumeration, right? It's getting familiar with the application, using things like the inspect element, view page source, going through things and just getting comfortable with those certain parameters. All right, let's go back. So let's go there. So we've done that task, that's cool. Let us redirect you to one of those crypto pages. So let's do that. Let's take a look at what that is. So redirect, let us redirect you to one of our cryptocurrency addresses, which are not promoted any longer. So this looks like it's an outdated, okay, so outdated, no longer available sort of redirect, but still probably current with the application. So sometimes usually an issue when you're coming up with devs who may have gone, they forgot to clean up some things, and there's still things that are still left behind in the application, right? So if you're looking for certain parameters and they're still available, chances are they're still going to be there. So I'm just going to redirect. That's obviously a keyword that's stuck out is there's some sort of redirect account, redirect URL. Let's say there's any URL or path. Here we go. URL is here. So let's enter this. Let's see if that redirects us anyway. Let's keep that open. Let's duplicate. It's all like that. Let me put it here. Oh, looks like it's gone. So it's redirected us to the Bitcoin account. Wow, okay, so beautiful. So we've passed that task as well. So cool. So it looks like it's redirected us to a Bitcoin account or a sort of blockchain account. Okay, cool, done. Awesome work. So just getting familiar with the console, getting familiar with inspector, debugger. So all these parameters of that application again are here, right? So if you're doing the proper search functions, chances are you're going to find something. Okay. So, you know, it's getting familiar with what to test or what to look for, and just being patient, right? Just things are not going to work the first go around. If they do, good. If they don't, good. You know, you just keep learning, right? So you keep trying and keep going. Just don't be scared to fail, right? It just, that's how you're going to learn. That's the path forward. So don't let it discourage you in any way, shape, or form. All right, guys. So let's go through the next one. So let's retrieve the photo of Bourne's cat in melee combat mode. So this is another form of input validation. So I think before there was a page of, let's close that off. All right, so there's a photo here. So that's the broken link of the photo. So that's fine. Oops. So I just want to see if I can find anything. Having a quick look at this because there should be a certain parameter that comes up in here. So let's just take a look. Maybe I need to refresh it or add blocks blocking it. Let me try this. We've got here. Okay, cool. Okay, so it looks like it's using some sort of anchoring the hashes here. Okay, cool. So, all right. Let's see if this works, guys, and then we can. That should be the link that should have the photo. And if I change those anchors to, I think it's percent 23. No, I think I did it wrong. This is a little bit strange. I don't know if I'm doing it right, but this is what's fun about it, right? It's doing it on the fly and playing with it. So let's just take a look at it. How do I open this up in a new tab? Sorry, I was looking at the wrong one. This is the one that I wanted. It's JPEG. So it doesn't hurt to look at the right page. All right, so let's inspect this element in here. Refresh the page. Yeah, cool. Okay, that's better. So it's still using this as anchors, I believe. So if I just change them, I should be able to see the image. Yeah, beautiful. Cool. So it looks like the anchoring of the page. So before it had the pound sign, the pound. So these 2 pounds here. So this source link is pulling the image from this source location of assets / public / image, images / uploads, Zachi, whatever. So these anchors, these pounds, these 2 pound, this hash, they're basically anchors, which is almost a sort of a text-like thing which marks obviously the beginning or ending of a hypertext link. And all you have to do is just translate them to %23, which is interpretable through the application itself. So when you convert them to %23, it does that. So that's how the URL is encoded or understands that, hey, it's a link, not essentially an anchor. And that's all it is, right? It was just the anchor parameter, something silly that's been put, which stops it from displaying that. So %23 is the way around that. So if we go back here, that should be cha, beautiful. Not going to worry about that. All right, perform a DOM cross-site scripting attack. So when we start talking about DOM, reflected, all these cross-site scripting, let's go cross-site scripting attacks. So types of attacks. So there's 3 types of attacks. We have reflective, we have stored, and we have DOM-based attacks, right? So when we talk about DOM-based, it's usually on the client side. It's not on the server, which is specifically around the actual server itself. So if we've put a stored cross-site scripting attack on the web server, that means it's on the server that's hosting this application. So anyone that goes to that website will then be susceptible to that cross-site scripting attack, which is obviously very dangerous. In this case, DOM or reflected, like when we start talking about reflected or DOM, it's on our client side. So it's only invisible and vulnerable to us. It's not persistent, or it's not pretty much stored on that server, right? So there's 3 forms of cross-site scripting attacks, and today we're just doing a DOM-based, which is, I forgot what DOM-based means. So DOM, what is DOM? Yeah, object model. So the object model is usually things like, taskbars and those things, right? So it's a form of XML, HTML, change document structure, style, content. So it's just making things on the application itself. So this is pretty much the DOM here. So if we look at this right now, the only form of where we can put this cross-site scripting attack, it's saying, hey, perform a DOM cross-site scripting attack with this parameter. So it's giving us the parameters too. So it means we have to inject this somewhere. And places that we can inject it is quite common, right? It's a type of search function. It could be a security injection with a web form. So right now, by just looking at this DOM toolbar right here, if this toolbar allows me to, let's just do a quick test. Cool. So it looks like it's susceptible to some, okay, great. So you can see that it's allowing us to input those parameters right now, right? So that's a really good indication that there could be some sort of cross-site scripting or cross-site request forgery attack that we can potentially do just by entering in, you know, some basic HTML, you know, coding, right? So this is just a heading text to see if this is going to do some sort of reflective attack. In this case, it is doing some sort of reflection. If I go back here, are we seeing anything that's different? It looks like we haven't seen anything that's really new or any sort of concerns, which is really surprising. That's off. Did I turn off the proxy? No, I didn't. So looks like it's still intercepting. That's okay. So let's go back to the scoreboard and let's copy and paste this. And if we can enter that in here, oh, we've just performed our first cross-site scripting. Now, in the next video, we'll probably talk more about cross-site scripting around, I guess, the formalities of how it works, what it does. We're also going to go into injection as well, so SQL injection. So right now, just getting familiar with enumeration. I'm not going to talk a lot about cross-site scripting right now. Just knowing about it, it's enough. I don't want to confuse you or overload you with too much information. So this whole concept has just been solely around enumeration. And that's what we've done. This whole video is finding things like the scoreboard, finding things like privacy, like the policy, understanding how to use the debugger, the console, getting familiar with Burp Suite. Like this is just the entry point into that. In the next couple of videos, like the 6 or so events that we're going to do, all these tasks, we're going to go really heavily into these things. So they will all start making more sense as we start diving into them, and obviously have some fun along the way as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. We've completed some really easy and cool tasks. The next subsequent videos as well, we're going to do some more cool things. We'll look at task 2. So let's just pull that up and see what else we're in store for next week when we start looking at more of these things. So now we're getting into a bit more cool things, accessing administration sites of the panel, getting rid of all 5-star customer feedback, broken access control, some sort of SQL injection, logging in with an administrator's user account, and some more cool things. So look, viewing another user's basket. So we're on Amazon and, we want to have some fun with, viewing another user's shopping basket, right? So, things like that where we have to be conscious of when we're doing application testing. So if we are coming up and doing a vulnerability assessment or penetration test and exploiting that vulnerability, and we can view another user's basket, that's going to be a huge concern. So, so that's pretty much it for today, guys. I probably covered everything that we've needed to. I'm not going to do this other task. I think it's all pretty relevant of what we've discussed. I've hoped that you've enjoyed yourself over this video. I know this has sort of helped me in the long run when I was doing these tasks myself. I hope I've given you the right foundations to get you started. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments below, and any other thoughts and comments that you'd like to see, hear, talk about, and collaborate on, always open to suggestions. So hope you've enjoyed yourself. Hope you've had fun in setting up the OWASP Juice Shop, and I'll see you very soon when we start talking about challenge number 2. All right, guys, hope you've had some fun. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk very soon.